We would like to thank LSR for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast. LSR produces Southern Cane Pure Cane Sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets. And we're kicking off episode number 7 on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm your host, Jason Duhe. Alongside of me is head coach Frank Monica. And we have a great show for you tonight. As always, we're going to look at some Week 6 recaps from some LHSAA games, preview some Week 7 matchups, look at LSU's past weekend and preview their game against Arkansas. Going to preview Tulane's game. We're also going to look at some Saints football, whether you want to or not. It's still there. We also have special guest, former defensive line coach for LSU, Pete Jenkins. And in the Let's Be Frank segment, we're going to talk about kids quitting sports too soon. So with all that said, let's go ahead and bring on head coach Frank Monica. Coach, a great weekend for football, and we're nearing the end of the season, or the regular season, at least in the high school ranks. But it always seems like as soon as we start, it's fixing the end, and it seems like it never lasts long enough, at least for me.
You know, after 6 weeks, what's happening now? People are just beginning to get into district play. So what you see in the power ranking system is basically they'll float in or out just a little bit, but the numbers are not jump significantly, because once you get into your own district, you're playing your own class, you're not getting any play-up points from that. The only thing you'll get points from are W's. So you go and run the table, you actually move up naturally in the power ranking. But basically, you're not going to get big upsets where upsetting a bigger team. So what you're seeing right now, you're going to start to see some stability in that power ranking system, because people are playing within districts, and that's their own classification.
All right, Coach, we're going to go ahead and jump into some prep talk as we're going to take a look at some Week 6 matchups. Mandeville defeated Covington 35-33 in a game that we both mentioned is a big matchup in that part of the state. What were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, the great back for Mandeville had 266 yards in there, and it had a kid by the name of White that had 3 interceptions. So that kind of saved the day for that. If the game went back and forth, Mandeville looked like they jumped out to a 2-touchdown lead. Covington closed it to a 1-score game at the end, but Mandeville prevailed again with another White interception to stay undefeated.
We also had Hahnville defeating Thibodaux 45-21. We kind of mentioned that coming into this past week. Hahnville, we felt like, has been consistent, and Thibodaux could kind of catch them with the haymaker, but Hahnville prevails in that game.
Whenever you go on the road, and they did, Coach Bowen had his kids ready to play. And it looks like that they're getting better each week, which he said on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, that they were improving. They were a young football team, learning the system. They're all getting to know one another. And it looks like right now they're on course to win that district championship with a big game coming up in a couple of weeks with Destrehan.
Carr defeated Brother Martin 42-14 in that battle. We also kind of talked about in this game, we knew Carr had the athleticism, and Brother Martin just couldn't keep pace. Because this is the type of team that Carr is. They have the athleticism, and they can make those adjustments on the fly.
Oh, my God, they're unbelievable as far as talent's concerned. But it was a close game. It was 21-14 at one time. Brother Martin was making a game of it. But they had 4 plays. Carr had 4 pass plays over 50 yards. You know, so remember we talked about that. Explosive plays is one of the things that will cause you to lose. And but I mean, they're going to have many of those against anybody.
And it doesn't take much. You know, you give them a small space and they'll find a way to run a truck through it. If you give them any type of opportunity to change the momentum, they can do it extremely quickly. And the biggest example of that was when they played Holy Cross and fought back from 20-point deficit. They're a really good ball player.
They have playmakers all over the field. It's not just one guy.
Absolutely. Next game, we had John Curtis defeating Holy Cross 13-0. That Holy Cross defense, again, continues to hold tight and to hold firm. Their offense still trying to find their way, but another win for John Curtis as they continue to stockpile these games.
Well, their running back for Curtis had 106 yards, Lario, but the story of the game is John Curtis's defense. They held Holy Cross to only 6 first downs. So that's a big deal because Holy Cross has really got a nice offense and some playmakers on offense. So the story that I think this year for John Curtis, they haven't given up many points, you know. And when they don't turn over the ball, I mean, they're a team to reckon with.
In our next game, we had Franklinton defeating Lakeshore 35-28. I talked with Coach Salt last year. We got a chance to call the Carr Acadiana playoff game, and he told me coming into this year he really liked the way his team looks. He loved the atmosphere, the energy at the school, and he's putting up some pretty nice wins, including this one against Lakeshore.
I think that was a big win for him. After he lost one of his better players as a college prospect, Coach Indes, that Lakeshore was undefeated going to this game, and he knew early in the year that this was going to be for the district championship and probably the toughest test on the schedule. So, but don't count them out yet. Both these teams will be headed to the playoffs and maybe meet one another again.
In our next game, we had Riverside taking on St. Martin's, and Coach, it was a big win for Riverside, 76-37, not just in margin, but in magnitude for that team. But Coach, the bigger story were these backs in this ball game, combining for over 900 yards all purpose, and I believe it was 14 touchdowns. Just an unbelievable effort from these athletes on both teams.
The thing that's impressive about it is that, one kid last year had 9 touchdowns in the ball game. I mean, that's more than a lot of people have in the year. I mean, this score looked like my Social Security number. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then the Barry kid had 320 yards, plus he plays defense. And but if you looked at that ball game, I mean, it looked like both defenses evaporated. I mean, it was so easy. Now again, St. Martin just don't have the linemen to compete with Riverside at this point. They just don't. So even though there might be a rematch, but I think the score is not going to be much different.
Yeah, the unofficial mark by Riverside's back was 540 yards. And as you mentioned, 9 touchdowns. I was lucky if I got 9 plays in the season combined, much less 9 that went for touchdowns in one game. It's an unbelievable effort from that young man, and he continues to put up big numbers for his ball club. In our next game, we had Shaw taking on St. James, getting the 35-14 win. And that's a nice win for Shaw. They've done that pre-district work and put in some ball games against some really quality competition. St. James is not able to slow down this offense for Shaw.
No, well, there was 14-14 at halftime, due to only because of the fact that Shaw had a couple of turnovers and St. James had a short field. But I think afterwards, Parker scored 4 touchdowns. He's a kid going to Michigan, so you expect him to have a great game. But St. James was kind of resilient. But big win for Coach Tierney because he had to go on the road, as you said, and win in a tough environment.
In our next game, we had Jesuit defeating St. Aug 24-23. It looked like earlier in the year, Jesuit's back was almost kind of against the wall. We know they had a rough season. They had a rough season just a year ago and really just reeling off some really nice wins, this time against a very talented St. Aug ball club, and just a complete 180 from what we saw last year from this Blue Jays team.
The Jesuit they're real good up front on both sides of the ball. They're real good. They don't have great speed with a great skill, but they're really good on the offensive line and defensive line. This game, we know Jesuit scored, and within the last minute and a half of the game to win it, they had a long drive to win it, and St. Aug got the ball back, and the game ended on the St. Aug was on Jesuit's 10-yard line. But no one expected St. Aug to defeat. The Jesuits to defeat St. Aug, so this was a big upset. So Jesuits starting to feel their way here, and they might be a contender in this league.
We say this every week, or at least I say it every week. It's the Catholic League. Any team can beat any other team on any given day. Maybe except for Carr, which kind of seems to take a superhero-esque effort, but really, and we just see this time and time again. Once again, proven by Jesuit. As we look at Rummel defeating Warren Easton 14-0. Rummel has been very consistent on the year, has only dropped 1 game the last I checked, and just continuing to improve on those power points that they're adding up throughout the season.
Well, this game was really tough. Warren Easton had a couple big plays on third down and long, I might add, and they completed a couple long passes there. They're huge up front. They have an LSU commitment at the left tackle position, and he's the real deal. And their defense can really run. They're explosive. Rummel's defense did a great job of being resilient. They kept them out of the end zone when they had the ball 1st and goal from the 4-yard line. They kept them out of the end zone and the whole deal. But the story was in the 4th quarter, I think Rummel finally took charge of it and started to run the ball a little bit better. And they took care of the ball. That was big. But But offensively, they didn't do very much for 3 quarters there. And the defense was kind of the story of the ball game and gave them great field position. So, I think Coach Monaco was pleased with the defense, and I'm sure Coach Phillips realized that his team is just right there. They just have to eliminate some of those mistakes.
In our last game that we're going to recap, it's St. Charles defeating Terrebonne 25-19 in overtime. A game where, again, St. Charles may be written off by a lot of people. Terrebonne riding high off of their previous week's win over Destrehan, a very impressive win for St. Charles to hopefully, for their sake, get on the right foot and turn things around in the outcome of the season.
Well, what a game, and St. Charles was about ready to put the game on ice within 3 minutes. They were on the 3-yard line, and just happened that unfortunate. And the quarterback had played extremely well the whole game. LeBlanc did, and they just had an unfortunate turnover going in on the 3rd down that would have put them up by 2 scores. But Terrebonne came all the way down the field, actually scored on the last play of the game. The clock ran off, and of course it was controversial whether the clock had run out before the snap. And but anyway, he scored, and in order to win the game, Terrebonne lined up with a PAT. It's 19-19, and St. Charles blocked it. The ball didn't get off the ground, but they actually had penetration in the middle. And in 4 downs, Terrebonne had the ball first and didn't score. And then against a real good St. Charles defense, and then St. Charles in 2 plays ran the ball and scored a touchdown to come away with the win, a much-needed win. In fact, it really helped their power ranking. They went from number 24 to number 16 and just went with one win because Terrebonne was a 5A school.
A St. Charles team winning on a block PAT. I haven't seen that one before, Coach. I mean, Madison, again, off the top of my head, Madison Prep, Catholic New Iberia are the 2 that stick out in recent years. But I've seen that a few times by your teams as well. Looking at some Week 7 previews, we have Brother Martin taking on Curtis. Brother Martin's been on a bit of a slide, trying to right the ship, and it's not going to be easy against this John Curtis ball club.
The John Curtis, like I said, they're really good on defense, and Martin does a lot of RPO stuff, and they have an explosive offense. But they'll get ready. This will be a close ball game. So I look forward to seeing this, like most Catholic League schools, and you can flip a coin about who might win it.
In our next game, we have Legacy School taking on St. Charles Catholic. We know that this is a team that played Brother Martin earlier in the year in Legacy School. For those who aren't familiar with them, came just on the short end of it. St. Charles trying to build some momentum, but this is a pretty talented ball club coming out of Texas, and it's going to be a tough one.
They have 3 legitimate D1 guys, 2 wide receivers, a quarterback that's 6'4". They've already committed, and so this is a legitimate football team that's with a lot of quickness, and so it's going to be fun. They're kind of like the ING in Texas, and maybe on a smaller scale. But they play a lot of games on the road, and they agreed to come play St. Charles 2 years in a row at St. Charles Catholic. So this is going to be a tough team to contend with, to contain that speed. So I know Coach Stein's going to work their buns off to try to contain them, and maybe do some things that disrupt that quarterback. But he can also run. He's tall, can see, but he can also run.
In our next game, we have Rummel taking on St. Aug. Rummel coming in 5-1, really leaning on that defense thus far in the season. And I think that'll be an interesting matchup. This Rummel defense taking on the St. Aug offense.
It's the 3rd week in a row that Rummel was playing a team that's coming off a loss. So sometimes that's not good because sometimes that team becomes hungrier. St. Aug is very, very capable. They can score from anywhere in the field. They have the personnel. Their coach and Coach Valdez did a nice job. And I know Coach Monica's worried about this and playing that Gormley and the whole thing on a Saturday afternoon, which is uncharacteristic of those afternoon ball games. But yet, it's another Catholic League game, and I think it's up to Rummel's offense, I think, to keep the ball and keep the ball away from St. Aug a little bit.
We also have Jesuit taking on Carr. Carr comes in unbeaten on the year. Jesuit 4-2, looking to put a stop to this Carr dominance that we've seen over the past 6 weeks of the season. What do you look for in this game? What does Jesuit have to do to try and prevent Carr from coming out with yet another win?
I think the blueprint is very obvious. Jesuits to shrink the game. They have to maybe go for it on fourth down a little bit. They might have to gamble a little bit. Their lines in the middle will be really good against Carr. The Carr's going to have to go over the top of them. They won't be able to go through the line on Jesuits. They're pretty stout in the middle. And Jesuits just have to get maybe 4 or 5 yards on the run game, short passing game, and hold on to the football and get that ball game into the fourth quarter, if at all possible, to give them a chance to win. This game's going to be closer than what you think.
Coach, just a question for people out there to kind of get an idea from your perspective. Why is shrinking the game such an effective tactic when you are again, maybe an underdog in a game, or when you're playing a team with so much athleticism? We saw this a lot from you during your tenure at St. Charles, especially. What does shrinking the game do to a team, and why is it such a beneficial tactic?
Well, number one, what it does is that it allows you to kind of control the tempo. So if you can run the ball and get inside the chains it's easy to call second and third and short rather than third and long. You don't want to get in that situation against a team like Carr. They'll be coming hard. And if you get within the chains, you might go for it on fourth down. That controls the game, controls the clock. Plus, it helps the defense. So you're playing complementary football. And if you have a good kicking game, that's a formula for winning. So the shrinking the game is really, really good now, especially if you go against an explosive offense, because they can't wait to play offense. They can't wait to throw a long ball. They can't wait to break a long run or something like that. So it might frustrate them and maybe get them to panic a little bit. And that's where that comes from. So when you look at this game, time of possession is not an indicator whether you won the game or not. But in this particular ball game, it's going to matter.
In our next game, we have Holy Cross, who's going to be taking on Warren Easton. Warren Easton has some really dynamic playmakers on offense. I've gotten to watch their tape. Holy Cross, despite only having 2 wins on the season, has done an excellent job playing defensive football and making stops and leaning on an experienced group of players. This is going to be a tough matchup for Holy Cross, but if they do win, I think a large portion of that is going to be on the shoulders of this defense.
I think on both sides. I think you might say the same thing about Warren East defense. I think it's going to come down to the team that's going to actually stop the explosive play. Because Warren Easton is going to look for the explosive play, and Holy Cross has got people that can do that also. And they're both coming off a loss. And I think it's a must-win for both these teams. And not so much of it right now about winning the district championship. It's about them improving that power ranking.
In our next game, we have another big matchup for Destrehan, as we've kind of seen throughout this entire season, as Captain Shreve will take on the Wildcats. Coach, this Captain Shreve team just went to the wire against Evangel in a 77-76 ball game where Evangel's quarterback, Peyton Houston, threw for 817 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 53 for 68. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to see some passing from Destrehan in this ball game, but that's an incredible effort for anybody. What does it take for a player to throw for that many yards in a game? And how do you come back after that type of game as a defensive staff and say, we got to shut down an offense in Destrehan that can throw the football?
But they both could say the same thing. I mean, their defensive coordinators, that had to be like a tennis match, going back and forth like that. And they both had to be explosive plays and probably kickoff punt returns in there also. But Captain Shreve saw them last year. They're huge. And I don't know how many guys they lost from last year, but this is going to be a big challenge for Destrehan. Now, Destrehan did get their quarterback back, and that's going to make a big difference in their offense, and they need to get back on track. And so, but this is a non-district ball game, but it's a big ball game, and Destrehan needs to kind of get their act together and get their swagger back.
In our next game, we have Edie White taking on Lutcher. We know Lutcher rolls into this game unbeaten. Edie White only has 1 loss on the season. I got a chance to kind of watch both of these teams play throughout the year. Lutcher dominated a really solid Vanderbilt Catholic team earlier in this year. We've kind of circled this game and said this really could be for the district title. And Edie White has, again, been one of the premier programs in the state over the past years. And this should be an explosive game between 2 quality ball clubs.
You know what I really like about this game? You got a select group and a non-select, and both of them are ranked like the first or second in their categories. So it's a pretty good matchup there on E.D. White, and I mean this is an old rivalry. They've played one another for a number of years. E.D. White really a powerful football team. They run a different type of attack on offense. They really good on defense. And Lutcher's explosive offensive football team, but they're also good on defense. So this would be a great game to watch. And I know Coach Jenkins will be prepared. We talked a little bit about Coach Kyle was saying, and he was on our podcast not long ago, and he loved his seniors, he loved his football team, and he thinks he's got a shot.
In our next game, we have one of the biggest rivalries, if not the biggest rivalry in the state. We have East Ascension taking on Santa Monica. We kind of talked about this over the phone. This is just a game that, regardless of what part of the state you're in, that this is just a big-time rivalry, and it should be a lot of emotion and energy on the field. Coach, in these games, what's the biggest concern as a head coach you have coming in about your team maybe getting a little bit overhyped in that early part of the game?
I think the most important thing is you play the game and let the fans and let the students and the alumni, you let them take care of the hype and do all the celebrating and all the signs and stuff like that, the pep rallies. You let them take care of that. Your job is to play the game. And your job, number one job, first of all, is to prepare. So the team that prepares well will play the best, team that plays the best, a team that eliminates the mistakes. And after, there's no secret. And now, because that after the kickoff, after about the first 2 or 3 minutes, that emotion is gone. You now have to rely on fundamentals. So, I mean, everybody hypes up the game to kickoff, but once it's on the way, and one team might really take control of the first quarter. But all of a sudden, the better better prepared team would normally, after a while, get into the flow, and the better team will win the ball game, the one that's prepared the best.
We also have Neville, who's going to take on Ruston in our next game. 2 undefeated teams, some really talented ball clubs from North Louisiana. Ruston trying to put together a repeat performance of last year and win back-to-back titles. What do you like between this matchup between these two northern football teams?
Because these games go way back to Chick Childress and Coach Brown when Coach Brown was at Neville, Coach Childress at Ruston. They go way back. This was a big rivalry in North Louisiana. 2 real fine football programs. A lot of prospects on that field. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this things unfold. And again, this might be a rematch of what you might see later on for the state championship.
Absolutely. In our next game, we have Notre Dame taking on Lafayette Christian. We spoke over the phone about this possibly being for the district title, and even if it's not, these are 2 teams that are going to make runs in the playoffs and could potentially bring home a state title. Lafayette Christian, it has so much talent from top to bottom, and we know Coach Cook at Notre Dame continuing to try to make a run at a state title. It should be an exciting ball game.
Well, remember, Lafayette Christian lost their head coach. They got 2 head coaches now, and Coach Cook will be consistent. He will run the same offense. He will run the same defense he's run for years, and I think Lafayette Christian knows that. But you have to beat them. I mean, it's the bottom line. It's going to be a fast-paced offense. Lafayette Christian scores quickly, but they'll be methodical. Notre Dame will not panic. They'll come every now and then with a little trick play, but they'll run the ball right at you. They'll block the same play. They will block 4 or 5 different ways. So when you play against them, you better be prepared. Now, they don't have the great speed that Lafayette Christian has, but they'll be very, very dominant in the lines, and they'll play real great technique. And the only thing is Notre Dame loves a lot of man coverage, and Lafayette Christian probably has some speed that can beat that.
And we're going to go ahead and turn the page to some local college football discussion, as we'll start with the LSU Tigers defeating Ole Miss 29-26 in overtime. I got a chance to be at the game, which is why my voice might sound a little bit hoarse. But what I'll say is it was one of the more electric atmospheres you'll see in college football, and it's not because of a light show, although admittedly I'm very anti-light show lights. It was pretty cool to be in the stadium and experience that, but the impact that the crowd had on the game is undeniable. But the way the defense for LSU came out and played, they played inspired football, came out with a stop in the red zone when they attempted to go on 4th down. The offense sputtered and stammered really along the way, but the defense willed them to victory. By turnovers at the end of the first half, the offense stringed together a few fourth down conversions at the very end of the game, including a touchdown on 4th and 5, and of course, the touchdown at the end of the game. LSU's offense was far from impressive, but good enough to win. But the defense, for a defense that's lost so many contributors, and Perkins really played excellent football on Saturday night.
I think that they're better without Perkins. I think that now that they're playing as a unit, they're playing with a unit, and they don't have to worry about making a special situation for a special player. I think they're more consistent. Weeks played a great game, had 18 tackles. That's phenomenal in the ball game. You have that many tackles, and the defense did save the day for them. But give Nussmeier credit. A couple fourth down situations where the game was over. If you don't throw the pass to the tight end, then he throws the one to Anderson for the touchdown. He's that kind of guy. Like he won't let a mistake bother him. He'll come back and we knew that going into the year. We actually talked about that. How he's a gunslinger. He will go out there and he'll keep competing. He's not afraid to throw a ball in a tight window. And I was surprised that they went deep on that first overtime pass play. But he right then he went for the juggler, and it worked out. The cornerback falls down. But give them credit, big win. But now they're going to have to be really, really cautious about going on the road, and let's see how they play against a real tough opponent on the road against Arkansas. Then after that, to get Texas A&M, I mean, it's relentless.
The schedule doesn't get any easier from here, and as you mentioned, going on the road to take on Arkansas is going to be a rough one. Arkansas always gets up a little bit more for this LSU game. It kind of comes across as a one-sided rivalry. You can have a trophy all you want, but that doesn't make it a rivalry. I will say I think Arkansas has put up some solid performances. This is going to be a test for LSU, and if they don't enter the game with their head correct on their shoulders and focused, Arkansas can easily win this game at home.
No question.
So we also have Rice, who's going to be taking on Tulane. Tulane coming off of a bye week. What do you like to see in this matchup on a Tulane team that's really moved in the right direction after two tough losses earlier in the year, but we've seen such dominance from them in recent weeks?
Open dates sometimes don't help you. They had some momentum going into that game. They were really rolling pretty good. Now they had an open date, and sometimes you can lose your focus just a little bit and lose intensity. And Rice has not been a dominant football team, but they're dangerous. I remember when I was there, the year with 1979, we were 9-2, and one of the teams we lost to was Rice, and they only had a couple wins that year. And I never forget that. The second game of the year, we lost to them. We ran the table all the way to the final game, but I remember that very well. So you never take anything for granted in college football because, I mean, these are all 19, 20-year-old guys, something like that. So let's hope that Tulane can continue on the roll. And because, everybody's now picking them, they got a real good shot at running the table and winning this conference.
And a few of our other local teams, Southeastern defeated HCU 37-7 in that game. What do you think about the Lions' chances moving forward at a possible playoff berth?
Well, right now, if they win their conference, they're 2-0. They're leading their conference. Can you believe that? I mean, after a real slow start, but they're 2-0. And so let's see how this thing unfolds. Coach Selfold, he's got a motivated team. They're a very young team. I think he's putting some pieces together now. Kind of went on the road, got blown up by a couple of people. But look for them. Listen, in that conference, anybody can beat anybody, like most conferences are. Because they play a little harder when you get in conference competition because there's more to play for.
In our next game, we have Nichols, who dropped a game to Incarnate Word 55-10. That's a really good ball club in Incarnate Word. However, you play an in-state opponent just next week, right? You have to take on Northwestern State, and you have to make sure that you can kind of turn the page after that loss. And these in-state games, these FCS matchups in-state, they're always some pretty tough and gritty matchups.
I wasn't surprised so much that they actually were beaten on the road like that, but the score is really not indicative of who I think Nicholls State is. I think that's one of the better football teams. I think they're going to right the ship, and I think you start to see that on Saturday. They're going to turn it around and get back together again. I mean, remember, they played some tough openers at the beginning of the year, so you know how that goes. And and because they play those money games that every school like that has to play. So let's hope that Coach Rebo and them rebound and come back with a vengeance.
Coach, very briefly, so we can get the Saints in just a moment. What are your thoughts? You kind of mentioned money games. What are your thoughts on that in the college football game as it exists with this looming potential super conferences and super leagues that's been being discussed? What are your thoughts on these money games?
I think maybe one if you're on that level, but they need so much money and funds. And what's kind of prompted that a lot, the NIL stuff it's not a scholarship anymore. It's NIL and making kids happy because they'll get into transfer portal, especially on that level, because all of a sudden they want to play for the bigger schools so they can make more money. And it's not about education anymore. We've talked about that on this show. The days of guys going to school and getting a degree and staying there 4 or 5 years, those are gone. It's right now. It's all about family, except in maybe the schools like the Ivy League, the need-based schools. Except for that, you still have the people who want to be engineers and lawyers and doctors and stuff like that. But when it comes to the football, the game itself, we've lost our way here. We've lost our way. We're now into free agency. We're now almost like minor league baseball, where you have a Class A, AA school, and they can't wait to go to the major leagues. That's what we've developed, that kind of culture.
All right, Coach, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Saints football as Saints lost to the Buccaneers 51-27. Somebody looked up the numbers, Coach. The last time a team has had 3 interceptions, a special teams touchdown, and a loss by double digits was 1950, and somehow the Saints end up on that side of history. It was just a tough one for the Saints.
Well, they come back after 17-0. They come back and tie the score, and they actually took a lead at halftime. They came out of the locker room. I don't know if it was what went on in the locker room, but they came back and all of a sudden it looked like the defense evaporated, especially in the D line. Coach Allen talked about the missed tackles, and that was he was right. Missed tackles, a couple of tackles with stiff arms, with the old-fashioned stiff arm, with the back just shucked the guy with the arm. And shucked them off like they were mosquitoes. But I was not impressed with the D line play. They were pushed back. There was a surge. That running back had 30 yards all year long, and then all of a sudden he gets 160 yards in one ball game. Where did that come from? That doesn't happen. Even the commentator Olsen said at one time, he said, "You don't see big holes like that in the NFL," and he was right. You watch a ton of games on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday with the NFL, whatever it is, and then you're not going to see big gaping holes like you saw. So I don't know what went on. I might say this to everybody out there. All the talk about the right tackle Penny at the beginning of the year, and everybody thought they were bashing him. You better go back and look at the film. When they run the ball to the left and he comes down in that zone, he wipes out that whole line, and he comes down. He's a big man. Probably has some work to do in his pass pro, but I tell you what, he's done a real job on the run, and he's playing very, very physical. So that their problem they keep talking about is not the offensive line. Their problem they're talking about is right now with the defense in the last 2 weeks against Kansas City and last week against Tampa Bay. And I love Baker Mayfield, but he's not the elite type of quarterback. But that offense made them look like a Pop Warner football team.
And I'll do it for Saints Talk. And we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will have special guest Coach Pete Jenkins will join us on the podcast. So don't touch the dial. You're watching on Varsity Sports Now.
We would like to thank the Accardo Law Firm for being a supporter of the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
Welcome back from the break. We want to welcome our special guest, Coach Pete Jenkins. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. I know you spent a lot of time at LSU under a number of different coaches. You got a chance to coach under Brian Kelly. What was that experience like compared to some previous experiences you've had under other coaching regimes?
Oh, listen, I worked for 6 different head coaches at LSU. To compare them, I'd have to go into detail on each one of them. He's a great guy to work for. I really enjoyed it. He was very, very good to me. And I found him thorough. And he's a very knowledgeable guy. Look, here's the deal. Too. I tell people this all the time. He's won over 300 college football games as a head coach. So the man's doing something right. Okay. And he's a good one to me. I like the guy on a personal level, and he was great to work for.
Yeah. First of all, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. But go back and tell our viewers, Coach, about your litany of all the places that you've been and where you started, and you've been at the pro level and the college level several times. Can you come back and give us a description of all the places that you've been quickly?
No. I can't. I'll give you a description. I'll try to do it quickly. Frankie, I'm like you. My first job was a high school job. I was actually the JV coach for my first year. I moved up the second year, but I take a lot of pride in the fact that I coached high school football for 6 years. Then I got a chance to go to Troy State, which you might be familiar with that name.
Yes.
Been a really good program in South Alabama. I think there's 4 staffs that have won a national championship there. So it tells you a lot about that place. In fact, the guy that John's the guy at Tulane right now came from Troy to Tulane. He'd really done a good job over there too. So, I kind of worked my way up, places like Southern Miss. And then I got a break. Coach Paul Dietzel, who your listeners will, I hope some of them are old enough to remember Coach Dietzel.
Oh, they do. Sure.
Great man, Frankie. I mean, great man. He gave me a job at the University of South Carolina. And, I walked in there, Frank, and they gave me an airline travel card. They gave me a Hertz rent-a-car and an Enterprise rent-a-car card to put in my wallet. They gave me $2,000 to start my recruiting account with. And I'm telling you, I thought I had hit the damn big time. I thought I'm out of that damn brown paper bag league that I've been in as a player and a coach. So it was a really good opportunity for me and everything. And then I had a chance to go to Florida with a guy named Charlie Pale, who you might remember, very good football coach.
Very well.
Died, had an early death, and had built Florida into a really nice program. During all this time, Frankie, I might tell you this, and you've probably heard me tell this story before. My dream was to coach at LSU. So I had an association with Coach Dietzel, and then Jerry Stovall was the secondary coach at South Carolina. Yeah, at South Carolina. So Dietzel comes to LSU, and unfortunately, Bo gets in that airplane accident. You remember that?
Yes.
That Bo Ryan, he hardly even got
recruiting. Yeah.
Recruiting. That's right. And so Coach Steitzel, and I would tell you this, Coach Steitzel kept everybody, and he let Jerry bring me. Okay. And the reason Coach Steitzel went in that direction, he loved Jerry now. He did love Jerry and everything. But all those guys, Frankie, had moved from Raleigh, North Carolina. They'd been at LSU about 2 months. They'd sold their houses. They'd moved their families. And Steitzel didn't want to bring a guy in who had a staff. So he hired Jerry as the head coach, and he let Jerry bring me to LSU, which for me was a dream come true. A funny story, it won't seem realistic in today's game, but I was over at the offensive line coach at Florida, had been down to the Keys, and he invited me and my wife. The phone rings, and we didn't have no cell phones, of course, at that time. Phone rings, and it's the babysitter, and she gives me a number that's trying to reach me. So I call, and it was Jerry and Coach Steitzel. And so they said, Pete, we want you to come to LSU. And we want to keep it quiet for 3 or 4 days because we got work to do behind the scenes. So anyways, I walked back out, and I was trying not to smile from ear to ear, to be honest, because I didn't want them to see that, to be honest. But so we got in, we ate, and we left that night, and I backed out, and we started driving, and Donna whispered to me. She said, "Was that Jerry? Was that Coach Steitzel?" And I said, "Yeah, it was." And she said, "Are we going to LSU?" And I said, "Yeah, we're going to LSU. And let's quit whispering. Ain't nobody in the car but me and you." Yeah.
Coach, I can't go any further without you. You have put on, you and Jesse started, and Kenny Farrow started. That's one of the biggest lineman camp in the whole country, and you still work it, and you're still down there.
Hey, Frankie, I was right in the middle of the damn story. Frankie, I was right in the middle of the story.
Okay, finish up.
So anyway, so I'm gonna finish it. So we're in the car driving home, and
right.
we're talking about us going to LSU, and she said, "How much are they gonna pay us?" Well, of course, she's the woman that does all the paying the bills, so that's what she was interested in. And I looked at her and I said, "Damn, I knew there was something I should have asked them."
Just a little detail like that.
I did not even ask them what they were going to pay me. And ironically, we came from Florida. And when I got my first paycheck, I realized that I'd come for less money. So, but I was so damn happy to be there, Frankie. Now, about the camp, yeah.
That coach, it's one of the biggest. In fact, when you started, I don't know, Coach, give me the background when you started at Nickel State, and you've had some great mentors there. With Kenny and then Jesse started. You guys all work.
Jesse, it was the three of us, Frankie. Okay. And I was going to do the D line. Uh-huh. Kenny was going to do the O line part of it, and Jesse was the business manager. They've both since retired. From it and everything, I'm still hanging on to it. But Frankie, we started it with a mission to help high school kids get to be better players. There was no recruiting. There was no evaluation of talent. We didn't care if they were 2'1" or 6'8". We didn't care. We coached all of them. What we try to do is develop hands, hips, and low back explosion, footwork. We work hard on tackling, and we work hard on their eyes, placement of their eyes, and sequencing.
Coach, the concept y'all came up with is tremendous. You get other high school coaches to bring their kids. That's a tremendous idea. Yeah,
and it's just, we started with 46 guys, okay, and Jesse said, "Do it one more year. Try it one more year." Well, I said, okay. So we tried it one more year. Well, it more than doubled. I think it went to like 180 the next year. It went from 46 to like 180, 150 or 180. Last summer, we had 779. And the only reason we didn't have more is Nichols couldn't give us any more beds.
Mm-hmm.
It has just been, I don't know, it's been one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life.
Oh, no question, Coach. You're the talk of the town. I mean, everybody talks about, we follow you because I still work the Manning camp, and we follow you guys, and everybody talks about how successful. I talked to Coach Rod, who's still part of it now and helps you guys out over there. And, Kenny Farrow and I worked together at Tulane for a year, and he's a tremendous offensive line.
I do remember that.
Tremendous offensive line coach,
Good guy, really good.
He knows what he's doing. I really miss it because he was a character, plus the personality he had. Coach, I'm going to switch gears a little bit with you, and I'm just going to ask you just a little bit about who are some of the better guys. I know you can't pick one, but some of the guys that you've coached that probably went on in the NFL, or maybe didn't go to the NFL, just real fine football players through your years.
Well, let me say this to you. I've been lucky enough, Frankie, and I really consider myself blessed and lucky. I've had almost 50 kids. I don't think 40, 45 to 50, somewhere in there, that I coached. And it wasn't because I coached them. I had the privilege of coaching them. And they went on to the NFL. 50 guys. Now, that is a lot of guys. Now, I've been doing it a long time, too, now.
Right.
I didn't get all those in 2 years. I've been doing it a long time. But let me say this to you. Leonard Marshall from Franklin.
Right.
Leonard played, and this is almost unimaginable, Leonard played 15 years, Frankie, in the National Football League at defensive tackle. And Henry Thomas, who you might remember, Henry played 14 years at defensive tackle. And Coach Saban told me before I went to Pro Bowl ball, he said, but let me tell you, even you don't realize what those defensive tackles in the National Football League, what their bodies go through during the course of a season. And I remember him saying it, Frankie, very well. And I was listening to him, and I believed him because I believed everything damn guy said. But let me tell you, when I went to pro football, those 7 years that I did that, I learned to appreciate what he said. When I think about the licks on Leonard Marshall's body and the licks on Henry Thomas's body, who played 30 years of pro football together, it's scary to even think about it. And thank goodness neither one of them are they're not crippled or a lot of guys that play for a long time, are really getting in bad shape and everything physically and all. But I try my best to help all of them get 10 years in, because if they get 10 years in, the way the NFL set up, that pension's pretty nice. And it really is.
No question. Coach, I have to ask you this question. You are probably the pope of defensive line play. Everybody respects you, and LSU brought you back as consultant, whole deal. But Coach, have you had an opportunity to be a head coach? Because your reputation precedes yourself. But have you turned down some positions? You don't have to say when or where, or did you not have an ambition to do that?
Here's what happened to me, Frankie. I coached in a large high school in Alabama, 10 assistants and a trainer. I don't think I was cut out for it. I just didn't enjoy. I did a lot of things that I didn't enjoy doing as a head coach. I didn't get to do as many things in the coaching business as I enjoyed as an assistant. So after those 2 years, I said to myself, in '86, when Coach Arnsparger retired, the captains went to the chancellor and asked him to make me the head coach. Okay. And I always considered that a tremendous compliment, and I appreciated it. I'll never forget the gesture. Okay. I just think probably as happy as I am today and is satisfied with the work that I've been able to do and the help I've been able to give kids. And I'm very satisfied with Frankie. Those 2 years. Those 2 years I did not enjoy. The last coordinator's job I had at LSU, I was glad as hell to get back in my room with the defensive lineman. Period. I'm just a guy that was what I was. That was where I was happy, and it was what I was cut out to do. I think, and I enjoyed every minute of it, and it was so rewarding, Frankie. I mean,
I'll bet.
I love those kids, and look, Frankie, when I got there, they could hardly hold their heads up. They had been humiliated by Florida State. They had been double humiliated by Ole Miss, and they were in a bad frame of mind. The first thing I tried to attack was we can do. We can do. We can do this. But let's don't worry about winning games. Let's worry about growing every day as a player. And what I was able to do, and I've said this a number of times, I've seen it where people printed this. I was never able to get them as good as I wanted to. But what I was able to do, and what I set my goal to do, was get them better. They got better.
Well, you earned that, Coach, and the respect that you get is just unbelievable. Everybody talks about Pete Jenkins. Coach, one last question, because you've been so great to us and patient. You and I talked this morning briefly about what do you think this NIL stuff is going to be? Because I think we're both on the same page with that. But what do you think is going to happen? Is this thing going to implode from the inside, or it's ever going to be back to normal, or the college game is going to be a mess?
Normal. Hey, Frankie, normal's never coming back. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. A kid in Alabama who I really liked as a young kid. He and I had some great talks. I really liked the kid. But, he comes in and does the same thing, Frankie. He tells him, I'm going redshirt and transfer at the end of the season. And what he's looking for is another payday. And he's going to get it, Frankie. He's going to get another payday. So this great game of ours, Frankie, and I know you love this game just like I do. I know you do. And I know you love the values that this game teaches young men. That's gone. No, Frankie, it's never going back. I just hope we can standardize it where, LSU lost 2 really good players they wanted last year. They wanted bad out of the portal, and they got outbid for both of them. One of them went to OU, and one of them went to Miami, 2 schools that were really paying a lot of money. And Coach Kelly wouldn't get in a bidding war and everything with him. He just refused to do it. So LSU lost both of those kids, and Bo Davis loved both of them. Well, he wanted them so bad. But that's where we are, Frankie. That's where we are. It's a shame. I hope we get it standardized somewhere. You got a payroll, or like in the NFL, you've got a cap.
A ceiling cap, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could do that, we'd be better.
Well, Coach, listen, you've been great, and thank you so much. We had a couple little glitches to get you on, but you've been great. We could talk all night because you got a lot of stories and a lot of experiences. But it's been great. And the guys tell me at the lineman camp that you kind of hang around there and you tell stories. And I need to go visit you guys maybe next year before we spend some time with you.
And I enjoyed it very much.
We would like to thank Gulf Coast Sponsors for being a sponsor of the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
We would like to thank Riverlands Insurance for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Welcome back to segment 3 of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm your host, Jason Duhe. Of course, as always, joining me is head coach Frank Monica. And in our Let's Be Frank segment, Coach, tonight you want to talk about kids quitting sports too soon.
Yeah, it's one of my things. I've actually tutored a bunch of kids, and one thing I used to ask them, I said, you're quitting the football team, and he said, well, maybe I don't like it, and I want to go to work, and I want to do this and stuff like that. And I tell them my answer is, 5 years from now, you will not be able to give me a very good answer why you quit. And I mean, so not only that, but even on the youth level. And one of the things I don't like to see, because if they quit on the youth level, you might not see them again in any type of activity. There's so many options out there. We all know that with the internet myself, I feel like it's a minefield for kids. It should be limited when you can do it. I think it's got some great stuff on it, but it should be limited. And I think the parents need to take control of that. Maybe sometimes maybe it's a gung-ho coach that kind of turns a kid off on a lower level, maybe on the youth level, or maybe it's a kid that gets caught into what they call daddy ball, where another kid is exalted because the dad is the coach and you don't get that opportunity. It might be something like that. Sometimes it's the bad example that you might get. So that experience on that level is very, very important. And I've seen a lot of coaches. I mean, how's that kid playing over there? For that particular coach, I could see he's turning that kid off. And and they're not learning anything, but they're just out there. So, or it could be a case where kids get the peer pressure, and maybe peer pressure is more important than any kind of pressure. If a kid tells a kid something and he's bullied or something, say, hey, you're not very good, and he teases that kid gets a complex about that. And maybe he doesn't want to compete. So, he gets intimidated. So that kid can easily leave the program. You've seen that, and you've seen that in many, many things. Or it could be burnout. A kid might quit because maybe the dad, he went through so many things. I know one particular girl, for instance, the dad spent a lot of money putting that kid through camps and stuff like that. And when she got to college, she actually said, you know what, I quit. She got a college scholarship. She quit because she was just burned out. So sometimes we could put too much emphasis on them. And, sometimes we play the game through our kids. But I just like to see kids be kids. But more importantly, I'd like to see coach on a lower level really handle kids properly, and make sure that they're positive with them, teach the fundamentals of the game with them, and make them understand repetition. Now, sometimes you have to be firm, not yelling at it, but you have to be firm. And another little thing that could happen, sometimes kids form cliques. And all of a sudden, if you're on the outside looking in, say, well, he's got friends and they all talk, and they all want to be together and stuff like that. And I'm on the outside. So all those little things can turn the kid off when it comes to athletics, and they could quit the football team. Now, there also is the part, the kids don't like to sweat nowadays. So that's come from being inside with all these computers and the little Mario games and stuff like that. And so maybe they might think, well, it's too much work to do. I might go out there and have to sweat. But remember, this is going to help their self-esteem. And the kids with low self-esteem, I think they need to be part of a team. And I think that, I love parents when the parents tell a kid, that if you start something, you're going to finish. You're not quitting. I love them when I hear a parent tell that to a kid. You're going to start. You're not quitting. And I think that's so important. But we do have we're in a society where we spoil our kids. We give them everything that they want. They don't ever hear the word no. And so with the parents or coach or whatever, sometimes they're spoiled. Sometimes they get what they want. So if they want to get what they want, it's like recruiting. And I used to make this comment all the time in recruiting. Parents would say, well, coach, I'm going to let him make his own decision. I said, wait. And I would tell the parents, wait a minute. You're the parent. You're going to let a 17, 18-year-old kid make that final decision? You're the parent. You need to help him with that because you're the ones that have to go to that ball game. You're the ones that have to fly out to watch him play or something like that. Or the last thing that could be, well, maybe you realize he has no talent. Okay, so I used to tell him, maybe you don't, but you got a place in our program. We have a spot that you can find to play in football or baseball, whatever it might be. You can contribute to this team. Stay with it because there's nothing like your teammates, nothing like that experience that you're going to go through whatsoever. But it said not everybody's an All-American. Not everybody's going to make All-District, All-State. I said, but you need those program guys. And that's what I always encourage guys. And I didn't believe in cutting. I didn't believe in cutting kids. I believe you stick with this program, and you're going to do well, and you're going to remember this for the rest of your life, and you're going to be glad that you did.
All right, Coach, in our Blitz the Ball Coach segment tonight, you wanted to discuss the swinging gate, or also known as the muddle huddle.
Okay. What I have here is because a lot of people, they come to football games and they see, now this is normally used on a PAT after a touchdown. You could use it in the middle of the field. Some people do. Some people have a series of plays that try to confuse. When you are an inferior football team, you try to come up with a gimmick or something like that. But let me explain this to you exactly what this looks like. And I got a little graphic here. Please excuse my board, my drawing here. Okay. But what you're looking at here is this is the goalpost. Now, if you look at this configuration, you see all the linemen and one back on one side of the field. They're over here. One lineman, one back. I try to do it backwards right here. Okay. So you see these guys right there. All right. Now, on command, the center will look over there, and the holder will make the command. He tells them whether to snap the ball sideways to the guy in the up back over here, and they'll run the ball for a 2-point play. Or if you notice, I have an E by the center is eligible. This guy here has to be off the line of scrimmage. Only the end man on the line of scrimmage over here is eligible. Only the end man on the line of scrimmage can be eligible. The running back now can be an eligible receiver. Now remember, that center can snap the ball and be eligible. The kicker naturally can go out for a pass, or he can run the football. So by command, the holder will say, okay, shift. If you guard me, they're all going to shift back, and then they're going to kick the PAT. The two wings, this guy will become a wing, and he will become a wing. Okay, they will shift back and they'll kick the PAT. But remember, this is a lot of options. The holder can get off his knee. The only time in football a holder can get off his knee is on this particular situation in the kicking game. Okay, so he can get off his knee. He can throw it to the center that runs in the end zone. He can throw it to this guy if he wants to. Okay, if he's not covered, or he can run an option play. This holder can run an option play and pitch the ball to this guy or whatever it is, or he can snap it this sideways. So there are a lot of options to this. Now, people call this the swinging gate. We used to refer to it as the muddle huddle. Now, it's automatic. It's what we call a check with me, meaning that if you don't cover me, we have the options that are already built in, and this call comes from the sideline. Sometimes it comes from the top. If they see something that they like, they'll have a code word to tell them, okay, we're either throwing it back here, and I'm not going to tell you what our code word were because it still might be used, or they might be using a pass play, or they might be using an option play, but a code word will tell them exactly what they're doing. If they're shifting back, that means there's nothing there. It was well covered by the defense. Let's go ahead and kick the PAT. But this has been used a lot. I can't tell you how many two-point plays that we have scored on this over the years. A lot of people still use it. And what it does, even if you don't ever use it as a gimmick or for a two-point play, it makes you, as the opponent, have to work on this every week. And so you got to spend some time, because what happens after you score a touchdown on defenses, they become dejected, and all of a sudden they lose their way, and they're not paying attention. Oh, I forgot to cover this wide receiver over here. Or I was standing up over here, and I only put two guys over there. And you see that, all of a sudden, that's going to be a run. Now they're going to throw the ball back to this guy, and that will be a run. So this is what some people call the swinging gate, the muddle huddle, whatever the name is. But it's all legal, because you got you guys in the backfield, you got all your people on the line of scrimmage that have to be there. And the center is a guy that has to be either a receiver or a guy that can actually snap the ball sideways, or he turns around and able to snap one PAT field goal. So this is very, very effective, and a lot of people on the college level also use something similar to this.
Thank you, Coach. And a lot of information there, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the At the Water Cooler segment. Coach, you want to talk about how are football players graded by coaches?
Okay. Excuse me. Guys, not every high school, I'm referring to high school. I know that colleges all do it, but not every high school grades tape. And they say, well, why grade tape when I don't have anybody else to go? I can't fire this particular player. I have nobody else to go to. It's not about that. It's about enable you to watch every player and grade the backside, because all of us have a tendency to watch the ball, where the ball goes. But you get a chance to watch the backside, watch the guy that, is he hustling? Is he loafing? What's his technique? All those little things that you see on film. Because if you just watch where the ball goes, you don't see those little things. So what we did, a lot of people grade on what they call a plus minus basis, meaning that if you did the job, they'll give you a plus. And if you didn't do your job, they'll give you a minus. Well, to me, that's vague. That's too vague. So we came up with this system when I was coaching. I don't know what people use, and I've given this to coaches, and the ones I've given it to, they really love it because it's more precise. It's something that you can actually show a kid exactly why he got a grade. And now, again, what are you going to use it for? Well, we took all these grades after every week, and we put the grade in a big spiral-bound book. And so you can go back at the end of the year and see, okay, what his grades were on the average. Now, again, it depending upon the position. Like, for instance, the offensive line, he's not going to grade 90 to 100. He's not going to do that. There's too many things going with the offensive line. There are a lot of positions like that. So, but they also know. But now, if he's grading 30, 40%, well, they also know that's not very good. Is what's considered winning football. So that's the most important thing. What is considered winning football when you're grading tape? And if you've graded well, you probably, and if the whole offensive line, for instance, graded well, you probably won the game. The whole defensive line graded well. Now, there's exceptions to that rule, but let me show you exactly what that formula was. Okay, number one, let me explain this quickly to you. Okay, if you look at it, so we graded on a basis of 0, 1, 2, 3. A 0 was what we call an MA. We said, what's an MA? Goes a MA is a missed assignment. In other words, I went to the wrong gap on defense. I ran the wrong route as a receiver. I went the wrong direction. On the offensive line, I blocked the wrong guy. I blocked the lineman instead of the linebacker. That's called an MA. He got a 0 on that particular play. A 1, which I haven't let it, it's blank here. A 1 means you went to your assignment, but you did not complete the assignment. Okay, so that's the differentiation in this particular grading system. It wasn't to be a plus. He went to the right guy, but he didn't complete it. He bounced off the block. He didn't finish the block, or he didn't run his route correctly. He ran it at 10 yards rather than 12 yards or something like that. A 2 meant I went to the right depth. I did my job. It was a complete job. So you get a 2 on that particular play. Whatever the play might have been, I get a 2. Now, a 3, you give out very few of the 3s. A 3 is something that beyond the call of duty. In other words, a great run, a great catch, a great interception, not just any interception, but something phenomenal, or maybe a great block. You ran downfield and you led the way for a touchdown for a receiver or running back. So all of these points are added up. Okay, so you take the number of plays that a kid, let's say he played 50 plays, okay, and you take the total points that he accumulated, and you divide that into that score, and you come up with a percentage. And now, so a lot of this depends on what you want to look for, how picky you want to be. All right, you add the points up, you divide by the number of plays, and you come up with a percentage. A lot of this that also you can pick out on this: how many tackles a kid made. You have missed tackles. How many missed tackles? I always want to know on Sunday morning when we met as a staff, how many missed tackles did we have in the ball game? Remember we talked about on this show many times. What caused you to lose? Turnovers, missed tackles, explosive plays. And how many missed tackles? A CBL. So you also get what a CBL means: caught behind the line. So how many CBLs did this guy have? Or offensive line, we had to throw them a bone, so we have to give them something because there's not enough reward for them. So we always give them a reward. Who had a pancake? A pancake when you blocked the guy and you drilled him to the ground. That's called a pancake. A lot of times we just call it IHOP Club, the pancakes. And also one thing that we were big on were loaves. Now some people call them LOEs, meaning it got to be politically correct, lack of effort, a loaf. Because if you didn't run backside, and that was for loaf, sometimes what we did, we ran them on Sunday. How many loaves did you have as a player, Jason? Okay, so we say, all right, Jason, you have 5 loaves. Okay, you have 5 gases on Sunday. So they kind of get the message that they hustle every play. But this grading system is very, very unique. It's very thorough, and I think that most people don't do this. I want you to understand this. This is, to me, I think that we're one of the few teams in the state that actually does this.
Coach, I didn't play enough to loaf. I was in the end of the game playing with the twos. I got 5 plays a game if I was lucky.
But you didn't no LOEs, right?
I can't speak to what I did or didn't do, but what I can tell you is I did run. I might have run in the wrong gap or made the wrong play, but I was putting out effort. So we want to go ahead and move on to our lock of the week. After probably my personal worst, Coach, I've never felt so confident in the game in my life, and I swung and missed completely on mine. But I'm going to pick first this time because I don't want to get accused of picking the same game as you, so I'm jumping you. All right?
Okay.
A Friday game, Purdue gets plus 27.5 against Oregon. That's a tough trip to make on a Friday night. That's a short week. Purdue is notorious for crushing teams' dreams. I just think that's a tough game. Oregon is a very good football team, but 28 points is a lot to ask of them going on the road on a short week after a high-energy game against Ohio State.
Right. I'm going to go with Colorado this time. I think they're going to bounce back. They're 6-point dog. I think they're going to bounce back. There were a lot of dogs that won last week. Well, I should say they didn't win, but they covered. So that's the difference. When you betting money, that's the bottom line. And it was a close ball game against a good Kansas State team. So I'm gonna go with Colorado this week. Last week I just picked Oregon because when that was a great game, but they get fired up when they go what they call that game day atmosphere. They get really fired up on that kind of thing, and sometimes they play over their head, and that's exactly what they did. I think So I'm gonna go anyway. I'm gonna go with Colorado.
A great matchup. And again, Coach, last week is a prime example of why I personally don't bet. But if you guys want to use your money to take my picks, then you're more than welcome to. But I am not reimbursing any money because I don't spend any money myself. So I just want to lay that out there for people when you hear my terrible picks today. Maybe that's a good game. Not my fault. I'm just tossing out ideas here. All right. So we want to go ahead and plug our social medias before we go. Remember to follow us on Facebook at the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. You can follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok at DLBF Podcast. Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, guys, just remember that let's go to the church of your choice on Sundays, and let's get some world peace and some prayers for world peace. And our speaker next week is Gardner Rush, sideline reporter for LSU Tigers.
All right, sounds great. We look forward to that, speaking to him yet again. And that'll do it for us. So for everyone here, for head coach Frank Monica, I am Jason Duhe. And remember, let's lay ball, tone relay, let the good times roll.